So as the title says, this video will discuss 5 things that recruiters typically don't talk about. It doesn't mean that they're trying to lie about things or hide it from you. It's just things that typically either are overlooked or just not mentioned during the recruiting process. This specifically for me applies for the Army or the Army National Guard or the Army Reserves, but I know it can also apply to the other branches, so the Coast Guard, the Marines, the Air Force, the Navy, all of the other branches of the military. So without further ado, the first thing that you need to make sure you consider and that your recruiter might not mention is that you need to pick a job, or for the Army it's called an MOS. So you need to pick something that you know you're interested in. So you'll take this test called the ASVAB, and that determines what jobs you're eligible for in the military. And based off of your scores and the jobs that you're eligible for, you'll pick, especially for the Army, I know that some of the other branches don't work exactly this way, but you'll pick the job that you are enlisting to do. So whether it's a mechanic or a medic or whatever, it's all kind of based on what you discuss with your recruiter. So now recruiters, again, this is their job to enlist soldiers, so they don't know you personally, so they are going to try to recruit for the jobs that their branch needs the most. So for example, if their branch really needs mechanics or really needs petroleum specialists or whatever, they're going to try to fill those spots first. They're not going to think about what you want because they don't really know what you want. They're not doing it on purpose technically, but just make sure you don't get pressured into a job that you know you don't want to do, you don't have an interest for. So for me, I made a list of the top 5 jobs that I was interested in. I took the ASVAB, found out what I was eligible for, and then based off of those 5 jobs, sat down with my recruiter and looked for what was available, because not every job is available at any given moment, and then kind of picked off of that. There are bonuses offered rarely. Don't pick a job just because it has a bonus, because typically bonuses are offered because the military is overstrength right now. They're offered for jobs that people don't typically want, or it's harder to fill. So it may look really cool, oh my gosh, I'm getting $10,000 or $5,000, but in reality it might not be something that you're really truly interested in, and you couldn't make a career out of it long term, and the training that you get in the military is worth more than $10,000 or however much your bonus is. So you have to kind of think about it like that. Just make sure that you take into consideration the training and the skills and something that you can apply to your life later on. So I knew for a fact I really wanted to be an intelligence analyst, and I pushed myself and I got in there. But it's only if you really push yourself and you vocalize and communicate what you want with your recruiter, because otherwise they're just going to throw you in anything and you might not be happy. The next thing I want to mention is that you can pick your contract length. Typically, a recruiter will try and push you into a 6-year contract, because that's the average contract is 6 years plus 2 years of inactive ready reserve, which everyone, regardless of the length of your contract, you're always going to have at least some time on the IRR. I am personally on a 3-year contract. It's something that's very rare. Not every branch does it, but it's something that I asked for and I was able to get. Just make sure, again, that you're asking and you're communicating what you want, because you never get things unless you ask for them, especially kind of these weird one-off situations. But there's 4-year contracts, there's 3-year contracts, there's 6-year contracts, and then I think sometimes there's 8-year contracts, but you never want to enlist for 8 years. You can always re-enlist. You can't go down in your contract length. So if you're not sure about joining the military, or you aren't all gung-ho about the job that you are going to be enlisting for, just make sure that you enlist for the shortest amount of time possible, and you can always re-enlist. Just a rule of thumb. And then maybe at that point there's a re-enlistment bonus or some sort of perks, or you can change your job, whatever. Just take that into consideration and make sure that you aren't just pushed into a 6-year contract when you're not exactly ready for it. The next thing I want to mention is that you pick when you go to basic training. And I know this is true for the Army Reserves, the National Guard, and I believe some of the other branches as well, but you're put into something called a delayed enlistment program. I think is the DEP. I don't exactly know what it stands for, but you go into MEPS and you swear in and you do the initial enlistment, but then you don't ship off to basic training typically for a couple months. So this gives you time to prepare. I know for me, I enlisted in September, but then I actually didn't ship off for a couple months to basic training. So that gave me time to prepare myself, to work out, to meet with the recruiters, and to meet with my unit. Because I'm in reserves, I was assigned to a unit already. But there's a lot of perks to knowing in advance when you're leaving for basic training. So you can kind of prepare yourself mentally, and then if you have any family commitments, like if your family member's getting married or there's something going on in your family, you can if you ask and you work it out at MEPS, you can decide when you leave for basic training. Don't let them just tell you when you're going to go. It's different if the job is like needed right now. They may send you right away, but if it's something that there's an excess of, you can typically decide when you go or have a preference for month for when you leave for basic training. Just keep that in mind. And then also there's something called a buddy program. So all the branches of the military have this. So if you are going to enlist with your friend, or your brother or sister or whatever, you can actually be guaranteed that you go to basic training with that person. I went to basic training with a set of identical twins, which was really cool. But it's this program where you kind of have that camaraderie with the person and you go through the experience together, and it's something that's really cool. So if you have somebody that you want to go through the experience with, talk to a recruiter about it, because it is possible. You might not be right next to them in basic training at any given moment. You might be like in different platoons, but you'll go through the process together. You'll probably see each other and interact with each other, but it's all kind of done together. So that's really cool. The next thing is, you are lying and you're hurting yourself if you are not truthful on your paperwork. Recruiters just want to get you in, so they might not delve into your responses on some of the questions, like, do you have any allergies? Have you ever had any surgeries? Have you ever been arrested? Things like that. But I promise you, it is not a good idea to lie. The biggest thing is, if you have an allergy, say you're allergic to bee stings, or say you have asthma, and you lie on your paperwork, and then something happens. You have an asthma attack while you're deployed to Afghanistan on a mission, and then your battle buddies have to go and save you when they should be focusing on the mission. That's like completely against any military values at all, and you look like a jerk by doing that, knowing that you have a condition, yet lying and enlisting just because you think it's a good idea. It's not. Just make sure you're truthful. There are waivers available for some things, but there's other things that there's a reason why you can't have certain conditions and be in the military. You can be allergic to bee stings and be in the military. You can get a waiver for that, just as long as, I think you have to carry like an EpiPen on you. But just make sure you're honest and truthful, because it will hurt other people in the end. It's not just hurting you, it's hurting everybody else. And then with your background, they're going to find out anything that you lie about, so just make sure that you're honest, because it's just going to hurt you in the end, and it's going to make you look really bad, especially if you have to get discharged dishonorably for something coming up later on in life, or something coming up that you lied about on your enlistment paperwork. So make sure you're truthful. And then the last thing is, you can get college credits for attending basic training in AIT. So I know for my specific MOS, an intelligence analyst, I was able to actually get an extra associate's degree just because of the training I got from the military. I already had the prerequisites, so I had like the English and science and some of the other credits, but I was awarded an associate's degree in intelligence operations just for going to AIT. How cool is that? Any college that you go to will typically do like an accreditation process where you give them kind of like a transcript of your military records, and you can get that when you log into AKO. You can get all that information of what courses you've taken and all of that. But usually colleges will offer at least some college credit for the work that you've done in the military. So don't discount that. Especially kind of tying back into the first thing that I said, make sure you pick a job that is going to train you with something you want to do later on in life. Because, for example, if you want to be a nurse or a doctor one day and you become a medic in the Army or the Navy or whatever, that training can apply towards courses that are going to be required for your major. So it really helps you in the long run, because then you don't have to take those classes in college, and it saves you time. So just make sure you look into that, and then also your education is in your hands. So even when you get out of the military, you can't expect like someone to push you and say, hey, go to school, go to school. You need to kind of take it into your own hands, and you have to sign up to get your tuition reimbursement and things like that. You're not just going to be able to walk into any college and be like, hey, I was in the military, it's free. That's kind of what it seems like on the commercials, and they're like, you can go to college for free if you join the military, but there's actually a process along with it. So just make sure you look into that as well, and you kind of take ownership and responsibility and go to school, because the military is an awesome option. It's great education, great training, but you should also at least get some sort of education, college education, or some sort of degree, associate's degree, or a trade, some sort of certification besides that. And the military really, really helps you get certification in so many different things. So it's a great option, and I don't think recruiters mention it enough that the job that you pick, you can do the job later on in life, and most of the time you're already either certified or halfway there or on your way to being a certified professional in that trade. So those are my tips and tricks and things that recruiters don't typically mention. I'm sure more things will come up, and I will mention them in future videos. If you have any questions for me, the easiest way to get a hold of me is to tweet me on Twitter, and I will respond to you. My Twitter handle is right here. It's the same as my username on YouTube, EB228, so feel free to follow me on Twitter. I can also, if you don't have a Twitter, if you leave me a comment below, I will respond. I'm a little bit slower to respond on YouTube because I don't get the notifications on my phone, so I don't see them right away, but feel free, and maybe somebody else will respond if I don't respond quick enough. But I hope everybody has a great day, and I really appreciate everyone who at least is even considering joining the military, because it's a huge step and not very many people can do it or can qualify for it. So I applaud you, and I really appreciate your efforts. So thank you very much.